Ladies and gentlemen, our program will begin in 5 minutes. If you need to get up and go to class or to do any other business, simply excuse yourself quietly. Don't make a big noise doing it. And I hope you enjoy the presentation. It will begin momentarily. She is one of our student veterans. She spent time in the United States Army with 2 deployments to Iraq. She is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Good morning. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance?
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Everybody, welcome to the LBW Community College Constitution Day. Now, before I do begin and introduce our guests, I would like to recognize Mr. Speaker of the House, Seth Hammett. I do not see where he is. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much for attending. Okay. Dean Jesse, if you would,
Good morning. On behalf of Dr. Kelly, who is unable to be with us this morning, let me welcome you to the LBW campus, to the Dixon Center for the Performing Arts, and to our annual Constitution Day event. This is an important event in the yearly life of the college, in which we take a moment to recognize and reflect upon the monumentous achievement that the United States Constitution is. And so, students, we're glad that you're here, that you've taken time out of your day to spend a few minutes with our guests to learn a little bit more about the Constitution and hopefully some insights in how it impacts your life on a daily basis. So again, on behalf of Dr. Kelly, we're glad that you're here and welcome.
thank you, Dean Jesse. Each of our guests are state legislators here in the state of Alabama. I will read a brief biography of each, and then each will give their ideas about the Constitution, and then Dean Jesse will ask questions that the students have submitted, and we will have a conversation. Senator Josh Carnley, Senator Josh Carnley was born and raised on his family's farm in the rural Coffee County community of Eno. After graduating from Kinston High School, he attended Auburn University, graduating with a bachelor's degree in agriculture. He is married to the former Valerie Presley of Alabama, and they have 3 children. Josh is partners with Denny Sanford in Samba Business Insurance. They have offices located in Troy, Enterprise, and Andalusia. He owns and operates a cow, calf, beef cattle farm and farms cotton, corn, peanuts, and soybeans with his family. In 2012, Josh was elected to serve as Coffee County Commissioner, where he is currently serving his 3rd term. Josh is a member of the Enterprise Rotary Club, a deacon at the Eno Baptist Church, board member for the Chocopee Yellow River Watershed Authority, and Greater Wiregrass Fellowship of Christian Athletes board member. Representative Matthew Hammett is a lifelong resident of the Rose Hill community in northeast Covington County. He and his father have been owners of the Hammett Drilling Company, Incorporated, a water well contracting company that has been in business since 1951 for over 30 years. He also has a cattle operation where he runs over 200 head. He was elected to the House of Representatives in November of 2022 for District 92, which includes Covington and a portion of Coffee and Escambia counties. Representative Hammett is on the County and Municipal Government Committee, Agriculture and Forestry Committee, and the Urban and Rural Development Committee, and the Steering Committee within the Urban and Rural Development Committee. Matthew has been married to his wife Selena for 28 years, and they have 3 children, Emily of Decatur, Bailey of College Park, Maryland, and Joseph of Dozier. Representative Neil Rafferty is the state representative for House District 54 in the Alabama House of Representatives. He is a Birmingham native and a Marine Corps veteran. After his term of service in the military, Rafferty used his GI Bill benefits to study political science, biology, and English literature from the University of Alabama at Birmingham. Rafferty's lifetime of service has been at the core of his career. He has worked to advance the interests of our communities underserved as a program director at BAO in Birmingham. His role included managing an intensive collaboration with community members, partner nonprofits, the Centers for Disease Control, state and county health departments, and clinics to implement community-coordinated public health strategies. He has been an outspoken and avid advocate for women's health, minority health, LGBTQ and racial equality, veterans issues, and Medicaid expansion. He has led the way in ensuring accountability of law enforcement, expanding access to mental and medical health care for all Alabamians, pushing for women's health and reproductive justice and expansion of voters' rights. He resides in the Crestwood North neighborhood with his partner of 19 years, their dog, and their cat. Senator Carnley, would you like to, or Representative Hammett?
Good morning, everybody. Pleasure to be here with you today. I wrote down some thoughts I have on what the Constitution means to me, and I'm going to read them to you. And the Constitution provides a common person protection from being abused and forgotten. It set in motion what is the greatest form of government witnessed by man. It has endured change, struggles, but it is still the guide for the free people around the world. It establishes principles that everyone wishes to achieve. The concept that everyone has rights and freedoms above government or king is as important now as it ever was. The Constitution and the Bill of Rights stated our principles, set our personal freedoms to speak, worship, and live the way we wish. It has faced changes, but the guiding principles have stood the test of time. We are a better nation for having an established source of law and common understanding which we use in our daily lives. The Founding Fathers could not imagine the world we live in today. They did not dream and have forethought about setting America apart from Europe and making it a very special place. We have an obligation to preserve and uphold its principles. We can slip into the feeling that our form of government will always be here. It can go away within a few years or a few generations. If we do not teach and pass on the goals, aspirations, and desire to live in a place with personal freedoms. Ronald Reagan said, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Our Constitution and the Bill of Rights are the roadmaps or basis of our freedom. We can point to them to ensure that each generation enjoys freedom and have a reference point for any future challenges. Neil, I didn't tell you I was going to do this, but me and Neil, the Constitution, I'm going to give you an example. Me and Representative Rafferty, Neil, we served in the legislature together. He's from Birmingham, I'm from rural Carnley County. Our political views aren't the same. But we get along and we work together. The Constitution, even though I've got different ideas of what Neil does, that's why the Constitution, it protects both of us. That's what makes this country great. We can have different ideas and different opinions. Senator, do you want to go?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to come today. It's an honor to be able to just come speak to you. And, hopefully you just hear from my heart, what I do and why I do it. I didn't grow up in a political family, so, I want to encourage anybody to know that's not a prerequisite to be a servant in your community. And, I think one of the things that is a blessing in our Constitution and our country is the ability for any person, no matter where they come from, the opportunity to serve their community, to be a part of change, if that's what that community desires. And just want to encourage everybody to be involved, whether it's in an elected position or being involved in an election or just be involved in your community of service. But, to really tell you what I believe or what the Constitution means to me, I think is really just to reference what the document is and kind of where it came from. I think too many times we view this document as something that's static, that just happened and, all these ideas came together, but, where did this thing originate or where did it come from? And, you really have to look at the hearts and the lives of the people who were involved in the drafting of this document. They came from a country that told them they couldn't worship how they wanted to. They couldn't live how they wanted to. If you were not elite or if you were not born into a place of power or position, you had no opportunity to have an idea or to be a part of that change. And, if you look at that and you look at their lives and what they did, I think that is what the Constitution should mean to all of us. These are people that they didn't just sit back and take what was given to them. They took the initiative to get up and to be a part of something. If they saw that there was a challenge in their community, they did that. They left a country that was home home to them that they loved. I don't think most of them left because they hated where they lived at. It was they felt oppressed, or they felt like they were not allowed to live as they wanted to. And so that was what drove them. And, I just referenced back to what the document says, in the beginning of it. It says, in order to form a more perfect union. I say that because they understood that that was not a perfect union. It was just to be more perfect, something better than what they had, and that was their goal. To establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for a common defense, promote general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity. I think if we can look at anything that we do, any law that we make, any issue that we face, and reference back to that opening statement, really that should be our guide. Is it doing those things? Is it giving justice to all? Is it allowing people to live in a society where they can do and, be a part of, that they feel comfortable with? Are they living in domestic tranquility? Or are we providing a common defense for them? One of the things I think that's unique, and I think even across this stage or in our state or locally, you see that people disagree. Heck, we can't even agree on football teams. Somebody likes Alabama, somebody likes Auburn, but I use that as a kind of jokingly to say that, while we don't always agree on everything, we can work together, and we can have an attitude of understanding and not have to disagree to the point of hating somebody. And I will say this, and we'll probably talk about it a little bit. That's one of the most discouraging things I see today, is if we disagree, we're taught to hate. And I don't think that's how we should view this, and I don't think that's what this document ever intended. And I hope that as a society, we'll do a better job of listening, of trying to be understanding, and making sure that, we're not closed-minded on things that are going on. I will say this, my guiding principles are the Bible. That's what I believe. I can go back and I reference that as my truth. While some people may not believe in that, that's okay. I'm not going to, hate them for that. But that is where I get my guidance from. And, I'm thankful to be able to be a part of leadership, to serve my community. That's what I tell people. I'm a servant. I'm not there to rain down on people what I believe is best for them. My goal is to listen to people and to serve them, and I believe that's what our founding fathers wanted in this representative government that we have today. So look forward to answering questions and appreciate the opportunity to be here today. Thank you.
All right, well, good morning, everybody. Happy to be here and joining my colleagues and you all to discuss the importance of all this. So when I started having to think about the Constitution, kind of what it means to me, we have to think about really the revolutionary context, instilling the government and the power of government and the governing into the hands of the governed, into the people. It's been theorized in Europe for a while. We have lots of influence in our Constitution from, Locke, Montesquieu, and Rousseau, but it hadn't yet been adopted. I think that was a revolutionary, great thing that our founding fathers here in the U.S. did. It established a central government that could effectively manage and govern international trade, treaties, interstate commerce, provide national defense, and the protection of individual liberties and civil rights. And understanding the fault of humankind and propensity for absolute power to corrupt, they very wisely put these guardrails in to ensure that there was a diffusion of power, that the power was distributed across 3 branches of government, and that each had a check and a balance on each other. This helped proclaim and guarantee our inalienable human rights and protected us from tyranny of any one person or one branch of the government. It enables the government to govern, but precludes the abuse of power to hinder the individual's rights to liberty, to be dissent, and to the freedom of thought and conscience. And is it perfect? I think that's a question we all have to ask ourselves here. And I would say no, and I don't think that anybody here would really disagree. I don't think founding fathers would. And although our union is imperfect, because all human endeavors have fallibility, I think they understood that this nation of men is and will be a work in progress. So the preamble was clear in stating that it was to establish a more perfect union. But most importantly, I think that the Constitution enshrines the ideals of America: justice, liberty, equality, and freedom. The ideals that bind us to one another as individuals in one nation. Ideals that give rise to our national identity and our national cohesion. Ideals without which would mean that we wouldn't even have a nation at all. While the old world in Europe was preoccupied with national identity that relied on a shared history, language, culture to form an identity, the Constitution brought forth a national identity based on our shared ideals to build a more perfect union of the people and for the people. And in a nation that is the most dynamic nation the world has ever known. A nation where truly anything is possible. The radical notion that the U.S. would be self-determined government of and for the people still lives on for an incremental work to actualize the true form of our shared ideals, to see the truth of liberty, the truth of justice, freedom, equality being realized for all of our citizens. This is our tradition, this is our culture, and this is our language. Through the push for progress, throughout our history, we've demonstrated our union, our country, can be whatever we want it to be. It's our choice. We're capable of climbing to this more perfect union, to realizing our ideals. That doesn't mean it'll be easy. I don't think anybody up here would say so. That doesn't mean that it won't be an enormous amount of work, sweat equity, and hard work, leadership, collaboration, and strategy. It'll take all of this, right? So it takes poets and artists, activists and advocates, preachers and dissenters, public servants and public community leaders, grassroots elected officials, because we all have a stake, we all have a voice. So as we celebrate Constitution Day and study and discuss where it comes from, I think there's prerogative, not just for us up here as your elected officials, but for all of us in attendance to reflect on the work yet to be done. Thank you very much.
Before I turn over to Dean Jesse, who is going to lead the discussion, I would like to thank these three gentlemen for coming. And as a matter of full disclosure, Mr. Rafferty and myself served together in the United States Marine Corps. So I've actually known him for years. The other gentleman I've met this morning for the first time. Dean Jesse.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. First of all, gentlemen, thanks for being here today. It's a pleasure to have you. We're so honored that you're here with us. I've got a series of questions that were submitted by our students, and quite impressive questions at that. But at the same time, I'm the messenger here. So, but obviously today we're celebrating the United States Constitution. You will, gentlemen, work in state government. So my first question is why is it important for the state to have its own constitution along with the U.S. Constitution? Anyone? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, Amendment 10, right? So it states the power not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited to it by the states, are reserved to the states respectively, or to the people. So the people within the states, they know more about what's going on. They're directly on the scene what's needed. So should be able to govern themselves within their own states. So that's my quick answer to that one. Sure.
The founding fathers reserved the right for the states to have control over themselves, to keep, government from having all the authority over the states.
I mean, I think it's just, I come from local government, and I believe in local government, and I believe local government is connected to the people as anything. And I served on the county commission for 10 years, and you're directly tied to those people. You work with them every day. The further you get away from that, the more disconnected you are from the issues that those people face each and every day. And so I think, there's definitely a place for each. I think there is centralization that comes from a larger government. I think the fear in the state is, and even at the local level, is when that government believes it knows best, what's best for everyone. And I think with different resources, different beliefs and ideas, I believe the state government is something that, we always should do our best to maintain and fight for.
Along those lines of local government or local issues, how does the Alabama State Constitution impact our local laws and policies?
So, and I'll say my piece, as a county commissioner, I was always, a little resistant to, when states would make laws and push them down, especially what they call unfunded mandates, when things would be pushed down and said, hey, you're going to do this and you got to come up with the money and the revenue to enact that law. it was something that was not fair to the locals to be able to decide what was best for them. You know, I do believe you need at the state, a central idea when it comes to things such as education or infrastructure, because, you know, one of the unique things is as administrations change and as elected leaders change, ideas change. And if you allow that to happen, you're going to have such a patchwork of a state. You know, when it comes to those big, important issues like education or infrastructure or commerce, you know, it can be dangerous. Not dangerous, but it would be very inefficient. So, you know, I think that, you know, having them work together, but, you know, also allowing the local governments to, you know, to be able to influence at a local level.
Representatives?
Well, I mean, I'm a big advocate for home rule and for local governments and counties and municipalities to be able to kind of make some of the decisions for how that city or that county is run. I think, like you were talking about earlier, that they have a better idea as far as what's going on there with their own folks, as far as what is going on and what needs to be done. There's also more of a capacity to build more of those long-term strategies and plans that kind of, while the administrations might change, the bureaucrats and the things that kind of make these things happen and see them through, the vision stays the same, essentially. You know, and I say that because I am from Birmingham and represent a big chunk of Birmingham. Birmingham tries to do some things that sometimes are preempted by my colleagues, by the state house, and prevents them from being able to do some real innovative things that might be able to push Birmingham to the next level. But that's just how our Constitution was written. We want to talk about it in Section 110 when it talks about local laws and what those are, as opposed to general laws. So that's part of it.
Kind of, again, along those lines, you mentioned you represent Birmingham. Obviously, Representative Hammett is our local representative here in Covington County. When you make decisions, or when, you know, votes or issues come up, do you take the whole state into account, or do you try to focus just on the areas that you represent?
I think you have to do both.
Okay.
I mean, but at the same time, you've got to understand what might be necessarily good for something in Birmingham may not be what the right answer for us. It's just two different places. But, you know, all in all, I mean, we, as a whole, we try to do what's best for the whole state.
I would like to add on to that. We absolutely are. I mean, this goes kind of back to what I was just saying. You know, Birmingham tried to raise minimum wage because cost of living is higher in Birmingham, so it might not be appropriate in other parts of the state. And Birmingham makes it a more livable city for people who have been at home and college and work and love that place. So that's just kind of one example of that. So you try to think of, but when I approach like a general law that's going to affect the whole state, of course, you know, we kind of have to look back at our 50,000 bosses or 50,000 constituents, the people that put us in office, and what do they want, but then you also have to think about what is best for the whole state and how it will affect individuals across the state, for sure. For instance, I had a bill that we got through thanks to my colleagues here too for your support on that, but what it did is it looked at getting healthcare providers into underserved and rural communities. You know, I was asked, like, when you're an urban representative, why you care? It's like, you care about the whole state. It's not, you know, I'm not just thinking about Birmingham. I want to make sure that, you know, any policy that we're putting forward and wanting to make happen has a good positive impact for all the people that call out.
And echo what they've said. It's, I think you have to. I think one of the benefits of, you know, representing an area is that you have the opportunity to, you know, have conversation or amend policy that maybe somebody from another area, you know, feels, hey, this is best, but, you know, we don't agree with it, then we go, you know, sit at the table and talk and discuss ideas and things that would impact our area. And sometimes it's unintentional, you know, that's one of the things I will say that happens too many times because we push for ideas that are important to us, and if we don't listen to what's going on in other parts of the state, you know, that's our job as your representatives is to, you know, say, hey, well, I understand this is good for you, but for my area, this is going to be detrimental, whether it's economic or education or whatever the issue might be. So I think it's valuable, the form of government we have. So, you know, you allow people to influence what goes on in the greater policy. But you definitely have to, you know, like you said, you know, you guys, you know, all people, whether you vote or not, are who we answer to. And while, you know, I represent roughly 150,000 people in my Senate district, there's no way I could vote the way everybody wants me to vote, because even in that district, everybody's different. But you have to go with what, you know, the people that you represent want you to do. And if it's something that Birmingham wants that would be, you know, very bad for us down here, I'm going to oppose, but I'm going to go to him and tell him why I oppose that and ask him to consider that. Or, you know, there's laws that have been written that were intended to be statewide that have been changed to population basis. You know, there's, you know, larger cities and they don't affect, some of the rules don't affect populations less than 500,000. And so, you know, those are ways we can work together to understand, like, hey, I'm glad and I want to help you, but I can't hurt myself in that effort. And so I think that is something that you have to balance both of them. I don't think you can say, well, I'm just representing just what I want down here versus, you know, hey, this is what the whole state needs. So we do have to look at that. That's ever present when we deal with budgets. Everybody wants money for their area, and you have to learn to work together. And so I think that is something that we do as well as we can, you know, because you've got 140 people out there trying to make decisions for their area. So.
Speaking of budgets, I would be remiss if I say thank you for the
Well, great. Thank you for that.
Switching gears now, maybe to a little bit more on the federal level. What are a couple, 2 or 3 issues that at the federal government level that are impacting either the state of Alabama or the area that you represent, and what impact are they having or will they have in the future?
Got environmental rules that send down here. Power South had to close the plant. Southwest Alabama, not many years ago, because of that. No policy they make on the board. I mean, you know, one of the biggest reasons we've got this fentanyl problem is because, you may have a different opinion than I do, but I mean, they need to be a little tougher on the illegals coming across the border. The example of something else, I mean, interstate commerce and travel, I mean, automobile is a huge revenue for this state. You know, the federal government has regulations that would affect what comes in and out of the port. I mean, that could be detrimental, especially our part of the state.
Well, I would say one huge thing that I think we'll see having a real impact here in Alabama is the Inflation Reduction Act, which actually reversed an old rule that prohibited Medicare from being able to negotiate prices with drug companies. I think that we have got to get drug prices under control, and I think that's been a big hindrance for why we haven't been able to do it. Well, I think we'll see huge fallout and kind of a windfall from that as far as affordability and access to health care. So,
I mean, I think one of the things I'll say that it doesn't matter to me what party is in leadership there is, I think the bloatiness and the overspending that happens, you know, we all see it today in what we pay for goods and services. You know, we deal with inflation. I mean, that's not just something that's happened in the last administration. That's been going on for years. You know, and that affects every one of us. Everything we do each and every day, the goods and the services that we buy. You know, you mentioned regulations; those are big things. I think immigration has a big impact because we're having to, you know, deal with health care, educate people. But I would also, you know, I think sometimes people talk about that and say, well, let's just stop people. I'm okay with, I want people to come here legally. I think we need to look at ideas of how do we allow people to come here legally, easier, more efficiently. You know, I think you've got two parties, one that just says, hey, we want to open the border, hey, we want everything shut down. You know, I really think we have to work together to look at what's best, and if we don't do that, we're gonna still fight the same issue, you know, every day. So.
I'm gonna have to push back on the open border comment though, real quick, because I don't think that that's what what we're really looking for here. You hear that more in like you know, a fair policy. We want to make sure that folks that were born here and have been educated here, who are American, have a pathway to citizenship and through to legal citizenship, be able to work, embrace, and deal with everything, be able to embrace the American dream just as they've always been brought up to. And I think there's been a lot of disagreements for how to move forward with that, a lot of roadblocks to the federal government. But regardless, I do think immigration is an important policy and policy issue and topic that the federal government does need to take more seriously and does need to get ahead of, right? But like you said, we've been talking about that for years. But it just needs to happen.
What 3 words, summarizing in just 3, but what 3 words would each of you use to describe the U.S. of America?
I wrote mine today. I'm going to say bloated, overreaching, and inefficient. It's just my opinion. I don't know what we're supposed to elaborate on our ideas, but I think what you've seen over time is if you don't get what you want, create an agency and give somebody the ability to make rules that they weren't elected to do. And I think that's one of the things that at the state level we push back on a lot. But I guess that really is defined by what I believe government should be. I believe government should be limited. I believe there's very specific things that the Constitution says the government was intended for. But now I think more and more people look to the government to solve issues that, in my opinion, the government was never set up for. There's definitely a lot of things out there, for taking care of people and making sure we do our part. But as we view the government to take on a larger and larger role in people's lives, it costs money. And that money can only be raised through revenue and taxation. And nobody wants to pay more taxes. I think you have people that feel like they're overtaxed, and then you have people that feel like they're not getting enough benefit out of the government. And that's what I don't just say those words because I'm trying to be funny. Those are terms to me because of how I view government. Now if I was somebody that felt like the government needed to take care of everything in my life, then maybe I feel like it's doing what it should do. But those are where that's why I think it is bloated, inefficient, and overreaching.
Representative Rafferty,
Oh, you let me go next? Okay. I think it's polarized, informative, and needs to get back to what it's supposed to be doing, which is providing representation for folks. So I think getting back to kind of what the senator was talking about, I think it is inefficient, and I think that was designed to be inefficient in a lot of ways. I think there was an understanding that not any one person has the truth, and that a bit of how government democracy is supposed to work, that everyone has a little bit of the truth, and we get to that through the debate and that inefficiency in the process. I guess you're talking more about the bureaucracy, right? So I would say that it's performative as far as I think that we're trying to cater to a kind of 30-second video or a just one line headline that can really get attention and grasp it. You hear from folks in Congress that the ones that are real grandstanders, the ones that are really up there making the news and media, that when they're in a closed room and no one's around it, the cameras are off, what's happening is they're actually very reasonable and getting along and talking and trying to get through the problem that's ahead of them. And I think that all kind of contributes to the polarization, which makes us need more gridlock as far as some of these really important, crucial issues that need to be addressed, as immigration, transportation, and infrastructure, if we want to talk about that too. If we're not kind of be addressing those, it just puts a big damper on our ability to be able to handle the real issues that are in front of us. So I wish we would move forward to that. On top of that, I think all that kind of leads to people feeling disaffected by government because they're not really being responsive to the needs, but it's because of this informative polarization that's being played out up in Washington.
I say the biggest word of the 3 would be frustrated. People in Washington, I'm going to say
allow you to put yourselves under the microscope. What 3 words would you use to describe the government in Alabama?
This is my first term. So, I would say slow. I mean, I'm used to when I tell my employees, hey, we need to go do this today, get this done tomorrow, we're gonna do this. That isn't how it works in my government. I mean, it's a slow process for me. That's one of the most frustrating things it's been for me is it seems like it goes too slow, Neil, but I mean, you've been there longer than me.
It goes too fast in time to make, so.
I would say lean.
What's that?
Lean, like, yeah, I mean, you know, you can look around at some of the things that we do, and, you know, you would love to spend a little more money on some of the issues that we face, and, you know, this isn't the question, but I'll say corrections. You know, we've saved and been very conservative in that and used money elsewhere, but now we have an issue to deal with, and it's a problem for everybody, you know, whether you have family involved in it or you're a victim of a crime. You know, we have done, you know, I would say it's a very difficult issue to predict. It's just, you know, growing population. You know, there's a lot of things that are dynamic that are hard to take into consideration, but I say that because we could do more, but the people, you know, would be very resistant to anything that might raise revenues. I mean, we've done a good job, I think, of cutting revenue. You know, we cut the grocery tax, which I think is a good thing for people as they try, you know, buy groceries and put food on the table for their family. But, you know, there's also needs that get neglected. You know, I think, so my word out of 3 would be lean.
Kind of at the intersection of state government and federal government is a current issue that is ongoing here in our state. And so I'd like to know your opinions on what the impact of me joining the congressional map will be here.
You know, I would say that you mentioned headlines. I think too many times people get caught up in what they read in headlines and what they, you know, want people to hear or say. You know, I see it right in front of Roger Smith, and I consider Roger Smith a friend. He's a Democrat from Jefferson County. We talk a lot, and he's been very helpful to me in teaching me things, and so I consider him a friend. You know, I think it's very important to listen and to try to work together on these issues. I think, you know, just taking one thing and saying, hey, you didn't do this because you're racist or whatever. You know, you have to accept it because you're in that position, but it's not the case. I mean, I love him and want to work with him and help him however I can, but you also, you know, part of our roles for, hey, communities of interest, you know, and what we've done is we split up and gerrymander lines to try to make it fit certain things, whether it's for one side or the other. But, you know, I think it's going to be, you know, whatever comes of this, whatever the court holds up or Supreme Court rules in favor of our map, you know, I think will definitely set a precedent to what goes on in the future. You know, and I hope we do a better job of working together and making sure that we're representing our people. Again, that kind of goes back to local representation. I mean, here, Covington County people called and said, hey, you know, we feel like we fit with District 2. Well, you know, if we keep this, you know, Covington County in District 2, then there's no way we can add, you know, some of the black belts to try to increase that population of the minorities in this district. And so, you know, I'm trying to represent people from Covington County, and then, you know, when you do that, you get pushed back, and everybody says at the national level, you're just, you know, stuck in time. But, you know, when people from Covington County call you and say, hey, we feel like we fit here, then what am I supposed to do? Say, well, you don't matter. I'm going to listen to what the nationals want us to do. So, you know, I think it's a big issue, and it's something you have to listen on, and I definitely want everybody to feel like they are represented. But, you know, that's a difficult task whenever you look at the whole state.
I guess the impact, I'm gonna talk about our area. Like John said, that was the most stressful week I've had in Montgomery with resolving the business. How many calls would you think you got about Covington County? We can't leave the wire back. Well, after 2 days, we realized we didn't have a choice. And so we started working with Jerry Paul, Congressman from over there.
Rights Act was put into place because this group of minority citizens here in this state have historically disenfranchised over and over and over again. The RA was part of equal protection, part of trying to make sure that they had an equal voice in government, the feds, and that if we're going to do it, we have to do it right. I think we've had a chance. We've drawn several maps, and we haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet. But I think it's very important that we, are adhering to equal protection for all citizens here, for those hard-fought rights that they've gone through, to make sure that they have the proportional representation and the decision and the ability to make a choice for them and their communities and representation at the federal level. So,
One final question I think all of us will agree on. What would you tell young voters about the importance of voting in local, state, and federal elections?
Your vote matters. If you don't vote, somebody else is gonna make the decision for you, who represents you. And I'll go a little further than this. I would encourage everybody here, these younger people, get involved in government. Get involved in running for city council, county commissioner. Stay involved in it. Don't wait to be 48 years old to try to get involved like I did. But, I mean, every time the polls are open, you need to vote.
Yeah, one of the most disappointing things to me as somebody that goes out and tries to get people to vote for you is that 30% of our population has the ability to vote. And I would just ask people, why wouldn't you? I remember turning 18, that was one of the things that I was, most excited about was being able to cast a vote in an election. And, like Matthew said, too many times people take the attitude of why, what does it matter? I mean, if we all have that attitude, then, we're going to be stuck with a very limited form of government. I think ideas are very important. And, I told them as we work on things that deal with voting, I want to engage with our younger population. What is it that you want? What's going to encourage you to get involved and vote? I mean, are you going to wait till the problem's so big you can't solve it, or until it goes so far one way or the other that you feel like it's too late? And I feel like that's what we deal with a lot of times, even in state government. People just feel like, well, it doesn't matter, but it really does. When people call and say, hey, I've got a problem, I try to help them through that problem. So it's important, and I just, I've got a daughter that's 17, about to be 18, and, I hope that I have taught her, be involved and be a part of the change in the process for whatever it is that you want. And so, just truly, really want to encourage you to get involved in whatever, if it's here at the school or in your community, just do something to help people.
It's incredibly important. I think most folks focus a lot on the national, kind of seeing at national level elections. We see a pretty huge drop off when we want to talk about city and state elections. And I think that if people understood how much the state government touches every single thing that you do every day, unlike the federal government, which touches it quite a bit, but not in the same kind of intimate way. Like the roads you drive in, this building that was right here, this is state government right here, and state government is working for folks. So if people know the importance and how kind of much reach there is with the state government, then I think they would realize that how important it is for them to have a voice in how that's run and how it's done. But also, like I said, just echo what they said about getting involved. Just because you don't have all the skill sets or all the knowledge you think that you need to have, or all the polish that you would think that you need to be in office, that should discourage you. In a lot of ways, you'll learn a lot. I mean, right? Y'all are not new, but y'all are new to the State House. I'm sure there's a lot y'all learned, a lot of skills and everything. I know for me, there certainly is. I'm still growing and learning every single day. So.
Well, Senator Carnley, Representative Hammett, Rafferty, we appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us today and for sharing your thoughts and your wisdom with us. I know I speak on behalf of our students. They say appreciate you answering their questions. This time, we'll turn it back to Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you, Dean Joseph. Gentlemen, I thank you for being here, and one moment and I will present you a gift. If you need to go to class, we understand. There is a follow-on session in the Dixon Conference Center next door, where these three gentlemen will address leadership and or other questions about that you may have, not about the Constitution, not about politics, but about leadership, goals, and what you may or may not be thinking about with your life. Okay? Now, gentlemen, in the lobby, we had, can y'all still hear me? In the lobby, we had the students and faculty that arrived sign a mock-up of the United States Constitution. It has the first line of the U.S. Constitution, and the signatures, and the date and the location that it's been, that you appeared. And we, as the LBW community, thank you for your time and your presence, and we hope that that does serve as a helpful memento of the day. Gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.